Yo, what's good everyone? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Revenant. I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks, and I'm also going to be talking about a potential buff that Revenant may see at the beginning of Season 8. Now, if anybody is new here and isn't already subscribed, I hope you will consider subscribing so you don't miss out on my next upload. And if you enjoy this video, please be sure to slap a like, as it does help the video. So back in November, one of the main Apex developers tweeted out asking if he had any Revenant mains that followed him, and what are some buffs that they would like to see done to Revenant as his win rate is dropping. So some of you guys may be thinking like, Revenant needing a buff, what the? It's kind of crazy. And I'll be honest, I mean, I kind of thought the same thing, but I just simply responded to him saying, and I mean this in the nicest way, part of the reason why Revenant probably has a low win rate is because a lot of people don't actually understand how to use his totem correctly. And his totem is also very unique in the way that it can actually act more as a liability than an asset to him and his team. And I'll explain how that can happen. Basically, you and your teammates could all decide to rev push somebody, and you could put the totem in line of sight of your enemy. You could put the totem in the open. You could have a third party come up and camp your totem or destroy your totem. And what can happen is two of you guys are pushed up ahead and the third one may be lacking, and the first two get sent back pretty quickly. They may have done some damage to the team, but regardless, they still get sent back to the totem. And then the third guy on your team is pushing and his timer runs out, so he's overexposed, and you guys are back to where your totem is, and you're probably healing, popping a med kit, popping a syringe, whatever it may be, and your third is over there trying to 1v3 a team. And that is how Revenant can be a liability. Now, I don't know if that has happened to any of you guys, but it definitely has to me. And that's probably one of the more unique scenarios when it comes to ultimates being a liability. Also, if your whole team doesn't push in a coordinated manner, it can really just screw up your chances of winning that fight. All three need to be taking it, and all three need to be playing off one another's damage that you do to a team. And that's really the biggest goal, is to get a knock or to get enough damage, because when you get resent back to the totem, you're probably going to have to heal. Unless you've already knocked one or two, then you may just push, but it's all dependent on where your totem is, how far away it was to the enemy, how much ground you have to cover to get back to your enemy once you're sent back. So there's a lot of factors that come into play that I just don't think a lot of people think about or consider. And you really only learn this through trial and error, or through watching other people play him and getting a good comprehensive understanding of what you need to do to be successful with him. And that just goes for everything in Apex. I can talk your guys' ear off about everything, but it really comes down to visually seeing it and understanding things. Now, I tried to get some good clips here in these games with Revenant for you guys to try to showcase how I think he can be, at his best. And I hope you guys do enjoy the gameplay. The other thing that Revenant has going for him is he's very similar to Crypto, where it's a much more calculated legend. If you're trying to do things solo with Revenant, you could just be at a big disadvantage because he is a team player. And Daniel Klein does mention that in one of his follow-up tweets, where somebody was mentioning about a potential buff to him being just kind of a solo legend when it comes to using the totem. And he was not about that change. He really thinks that Revenant is a good team player. He just wants to see his win rate go up, which another reason why I would guess his win rate is down is because he probably wasn't played a lot on Kings Canyon, and he's not very common in pubs, at least in the lobbies I get into. You may see one or two, but he's not part of the meta by any means. I do think there's a lot of other good legends out right now, and Revenant does have sort of a stigma attached to him, similar to Caustic, where he may have a crutch or he's annoying, yada yada. But I have to say, guys, every legend in this game has an ability that's a crutch in some way or another. Whether it's movement based, whether it's offensive or defensive, it doesn't really matter. It's Apex Legends, and every legend has an ability that can be extremely annoying and can make you lose fights, and so on and so forth. So saying any of them are really crutches, I just don't really agree with that. I do think there are times where you can actually just get outplayed by abilities, and that's when the game is the most frustrating, especially when you feel like, you know, you've outgunned them or you've outplayed them, and then you just get outplayed by their abilities. That is when, Apex can be the most annoying. And they've mentioned that they want the game to be gun skill based before abilities, but there are times when abilities are just dominant, and there's really no way around it. The other thing that Revenant has that I think is really strong, especially in Fragment in these buildings, is his passive. The ability to climb higher and get alternate angles on your enemies, especially when you're coordinated with a team, is pretty OP, because you can work certain angles on buildings where people can't hear you climbing, and you've just created the element of surprise for them. The other thing is his silence is actually really strong. And there's a couple clips in this video where I end up silencing a Wraith and kind of catching her out in the open after I do some damage to her. When the Wraith can't phase out, it really kind of screws her up, and it just forces a gunfight, essentially. It also does kind of obstruct their vision and their sound due to, I guess the silence just doing that, due to the silence having this this weird visual and sound effect that's kind of attached to it. I do think that could be changed. I don't really think it needs to be as loud or as blinding from the visual standpoint. I also think it would probably help because it can be a liability to Revenant as well, not only enemies. So I do hope they do change that, if anything. I don't think he needs any buffs when it comes to the totem. I just think a lot of people don't understand him, and a lot of good players just don't play him. There are some good players who do, but he's just not that common. You'll see him more in ranked because he's going to give you more opportunities to get RP from a more free sense than some of the other legends. But he is definitely still a strong legend. He just has to be used correctly. And I just think that's where Revenant is kind of lacking. So if this video helped you in any way, guys, I hope you will slap a like on it. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Let me know what you think about Revenant in the comments down below. Does he need a buff or is he pretty balanced? Alright guys, I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.